Before I begin this review, I want to address everyone who has been patiently waiting for it. I've been promising this review for almost 2 years now, and if you're wondering why it never got made, well, there is one key factor. You see, I had the review pretty much done with only a few editing tweaks to go, and planned on releasing it right after I was done uploading my Madam Web review last year. Unfortunately, a couple days after I uploaded my Madam Web review, my baby girl accidentally knocked over my MacBook and completely broke the screen. Now, I'm sure anyone out there with 2 young kids can pretty much tell you that unless you have a ton of disposable income at that point, you're pretty much screwed. And yeah, that's why I haven't been able to do more of these for you. I haven't had a computer to do it. But it's okay, Alora. You're still Daddy's perfect princess angel who does no wrong. However, I'm almost grateful that what happened, and here's why. Listen, I've had hot takes before, like the one you will see in this video. But when it comes to Phase 5 of the MCU, the majority and myself have been on the complete opposite spectrum from start to finish. I was pretty much in line with the majority in Phase 4, where there were things to like but a lot to dislike. But with Phase 5, there really isn't any common ground between me and the majority. The only one I can really meet people in the middle on is Deadpool and Wolverine. Because while it is an absolute shit sequel to Deadpool 2 with a plot that feels like it was written over a weekend by a 5-year-old in purple crayon, it's undoubtedly a fun fucking movie from start to finish, with one of the greatest opening credits I've ever witnessed. So you can see how I'm a bit conflicted on that one. But yeah, everyone loved Guardians 3 and Thunderbolts. I did not. Hell, for all the shit I'm about to give this movie in a minute, my feelings towards Thunderbolts are even worse. So I'm not stopping with this one. My next 4 videos for Hot Take Hell will be for the rest of the films in Phase 5. I've already said my piece on Quantumania, and you can still watch that video on my channel. Having watched that movie again last week, I stand by everything I said in that review. The Marvels will be next, followed by Deadpool and Wolverine, Captain America Brave New World, and finally the lame-ass Avengers. I mean the Thunderbolts. Sorry, my mistake. You see where I got confused there. That being said, you've all patiently waited for this video long enough. Enjoy, my friends. Back in 2014, James Gunn delivered one of the biggest cinematic surprises in years with Guardians of the Galaxy. It was a colossal hit with both critics and audiences. It was praised as one of the best Marvel films of all time almost immediately, and cemented James Gunn as a serious talent in Hollywood. And the reason this was so surprising was that no one really knew who the Guardians of the Galaxy were, outside of hardcore Marvel fans. Hell, I grew up on Marvel comics, and even I had to look them up. When I did, I realized I did remember them, but just barely. I had a few issues of the original Guardians comics growing up, but the characters in the movie were vastly different from the original comics characters, outside of Yondu. So I guess it was understandable why I didn't recognize the talking raccoon or the big-ass tree when I saw the trailer. Eventually, the comic series was rebranded with these characters. I don't know if this was before or after the movie was announced. I mean, to my knowledge, it was after. Don't quote me on that, though. Anyway, none of that's important. What is important was that I saw this movie, and it instantly became my favorite MCU film. I had never had more fun with any MCU film up until that point. Yes, Ronan isn't a great villain, and the Guardians do become friends way too quickly, but hey, the same can be said for Suicide Squad, and everyone loves that movie, right? Regardless of that, the film was perfectly acted, perfectly paced, beautifully shot from beginning to end, and unbelievably hilarious. I love Guardians of the Galaxy. It is still a top 5 Marvel film for me. When it comes to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, that's more complicated. You see, before I saw Guardians 2, all I could hear is, "It's too jokey, the villain sucks, Yondu's a pussy now, Drax is only played for laughs, brah. God, it's such a letdown." So I saw the movie, and honestly, I still want to know what movie these people saw, because Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 not only surpassed every expectation I had for it, it surpassed the first film by a country mile. I found it immensely funnier than the first. I thought the villain Ego was vastly superior to Ronan in every way. Yondu is not just a side character this time, he's upgraded to being a main player in the film and is actually a fully developed character. Nothing wrong with that. And the notion that Drax is only played for laughs is bullshit.
Those pools, they remind me of a time when I took my daughter to the forgotten lakes of my homeworld. She was like you, innocent.
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is, like the first film, a top 5 MCU film for me. I adore it. So needless to say, I had high expectations for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. You had 2 top-tier MCU films to push off of. You had everyone championing James Gunn, not just for being rehired after that bullshit from a few years ago, but you also had everyone hyped and thinking this man could do no wrong after his iteration of the Suicide Squad. Now, I wasn't one of those people thinking that because I personally thought that movie was garbage, but regardless, most people did not. So this movie had a lot going for it, and a lot of hype leading up to it. And when it came to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I was extremely underwhelmed and disappointed. In fact, I felt the movie as a whole was quite bad. Now, that isn't to say I didn't like anything. There are certainly some bright spots in the movie, and I will address them before getting into any of my criticisms. But I'm sorry, guys, there was so much in this film that just did not work for me. I found this film to be plagued by so many storytelling and character issues, especially in regard to the villains. That being said, what did I like about this movie? Well, I really liked Rocket's story in the film, for the most part. His story was very predictable, to be honest, to the point where I called everything that was going to happen the second his backstory with the High Evolutionary began. However, the backstory regarding his friends, Lila, Floor, and Teefs, was the very heart of this film. I loved their interactions together, and even though I knew it was coming, I was legitimately heartbroken when they all died. The music, paired with Rocket's reaction to the event, really helped sell that particular scene, and I legitimately loved those sections of the movie. Even that cheesy-ass scene when Rocket is dying and Lila tells him, "It's not your time," was surprisingly very moving. Scenes like that usually don't work in movies for me, but James Gunn found a way to make it work here. So kudos. I also really liked Nebula in the film. She's clearly the most well-developed character in the movie, taking on more of a leader role and accepting the Guardians as her family. It was nice that after all Nebula had suffered in her life, she still found happiness and her true calling in the end. And the last thing I liked was this moment where Groot pulled a crap ton of weapons out of his body. That was pretty badass. So, yeah, that was all I liked. Oh boy, this comment section is about to get brutal. Now, I have a lot of issues with this film, and I'm going to start with my biggest issue first. I fucking hated the High Evolutionary. Yes, what he does is sadistic and fucked up. The whole animal cruelty subplot does not escape me. He definitely fits the mold of a villain. My issue with the High Evolutionary is that he is so goddamn irritating. All this motherfucker does is scream throughout the entire film, even in moments that don't call for it. He reminded me of Eddie Redmayne in Jupiter Ascending, where one moment he'll be whispering some random shit, and then for absolutely no reason, we'll start screaming!
There is no God! That's why I stepped in! I made you! How did you know? How dare you think you are more?
Every time this guy opened his mouth, all I could think was this.
I don't know what we're yelling about! Loud noises!
I mean, I'm sorry. Is this really what people are finding intimidating? Look, I'm not downplaying the horrible things he does in the film, especially to Rocket, but he comes off so fucking ridiculous with the constant screaming and acting like an annoyed child that I can't take him seriously. I mean, Jesus fuck, this guy screams louder than my son, and he's fucking 7. Now, let's compare the High Evolutionary with another villain from Phase 5, Kang. To be intimidating, all this guy had to do was walk in the damn room and shoot a stare. He could be intimidating without even saying a word, and even when he did talk, he spoke seriously and calmly, because he knows he's in charge of the situation. He knows he's killed Avengers before. He knows he doesn't need to waste his time and energy on these people. That is what an intimidating villain is. The Kangs, the Owen Davians, hell, even the Egos, who are so sure of themselves that they feel they know they are invincible. That isn't to say that's what they are, but that's how they see themselves. And what did I get with this villain?
Loud noises!
But what really kills me about this is that when I heard the High Evolutionary would be the villain, my ass was hyped as hell. And it's not because I'm a big fan of him from the comics, but because I'm a big fan of a certain cartoon series that many have forgotten about. The High Evolutionary was the big bad in Spider-Man Unlimited, and Counter-Earth, which is shown in this film, was filled with his creations. The High Evolutionary in Spider-Man Unlimited was a villain who was so smart, cold, and calculating, he never had to constantly scream to act intimidating. He was naturally intimidating. I was really hoping they would portray this character more like this, but we did not get that here. Instead, we got an incessive whiner screaming at everything under the sun to compensate for his lack of intimidation and occasionally doing something horrific to animals. Yeah, great villain there. And that leads me into my next problem. Counter-Earth. Yet another letdown in the laundry list of letdowns this film has to offer. Maybe this is just me, and it probably is because for the life of me, I don't know anyone else who liked Spider-Man Unlimited the way I did. But when I think of Counter-Earth, this is what I think of. Yeah, you see what I'm talking about here? I think of a war-torn Earth where the High Evolutionary rules with an iron fist. I mean, can you imagine James Gunn taking this and putting it in live action? Jesus, the possibilities were endless here. But yeah, that's what I think about when I think Counter-Earth. I do not think downtown suburbia with deer and cat creatures. This is not Counter-Earth. This is Furry Earth. This is beyond lame. And I'm sorry, they had to have known it was lame, because I don't think they would have wasted the MCU's first F-bomb if what they had was actually working.
Okay, now what?
Open the door!
But, okay, the High Evolutionary is only one villain in the film, so let's move on to how they handled Adam Warlock, the Sovereign, and Aisha. Now, an after-credits scene of Guardians 2 teased Adam Warlock being in this film. So you would think with Adam Warlock basically being such a high-profile character in Marvel, he would be a top priority in the film, would play a major role, and would be taken as seriously as possible. Guess which one of these things they did? A, took him seriously, B, made him a top priority, C, made him important, or D, none of the above. If your answer was D, yeah, no shit. Not only is Adam Warlock in so little of this film you often forget he's there, not only did they treat him like he was an afterthought and railroaded in at the last minute, they literally took this character and made him a complete and total dipshit. Every scene with this character just pissed me off, because this is in no way a representation of Adam Warlock. I don't know who this idiot was, but he sure as shit wasn't Adam Warlock. This was a character who could straight up knock Thanos on his ass in the comics. But here, he can barely take out the random person in front of him. He is useless. And before anyone says anything, I'm not blaming the actor for this. This was not his fault. I love Will Poulter and other shit. He plays an overgrown idiot rather well in this. The badly written script was obviously to blame in this situation. And as for the Sovereign and Aisha, well, Jesus fuck, where do I even start? So we find out in this film that the Sovereign was created by the High Evolutionary and have been his slaves the whole time. What? Yeah, that in no way makes any goddamn sense with how they were portrayed in the second film as this noble, dignified, and proud race under the rule of Aisha. I mean, these people were so damn dignified, they needed to roll out a carpet for Aisha to walk on. But now, Aisha is mostly shown in tatters, is treated like a complete joke, is under the High Evolutionary's thumb throughout the entire film, and she just unceremoniously dies in an explosion. Great. I'm sorry, compared to how these characters were in Volume 2, this shit is completely backwards. It makes me wonder why they even bothered bringing them back at all. You clearly did not care about these characters, and you treated them like a damn afterthought. And you made them into sniveling pussies just to try to make your new villain look more threatening. Now let's move on to the Guardians. Now again, while his backstory was very predictable, I really loved Rocket's story in the movie. And as I said, I also like Nebula, although I will say this line in the movie really pissed me off.
Hold it still.
I can't! It won't stop moving!
Why did he never tell us about any of this?
This is worse than what Thanos did to me.
Bullshit. Really? That's worse than what Thanos did to you. Did Rocket have all of his body parts replaced to the point where he's now more machine than raccoon? Yeah, I didn't think so. You can stop with the emotional manipulation, James Gunn. No one's buying it. The rest of the Guardians? Yeah, no. Peter Quill's arc starts out interesting enough, with him being an alcoholic trying to cope with Gamora's absence, and then it's completely abandoned after the opening. Oh, he still deals with Gamora, and by deals with Gamora, I mean acts like a complete jackhole every time he's around Gamora, trying to get her to remember things that obviously never happened to this Gamora, you fucking idiots. Every time he tried that shit or confronted her about it, my eyes were rolling into the back of my head so fast they were saying hi to my fucking brain. And this continues throughout the whole movie. It never stops until the end when they have a "we cool" moment and go their separate ways. Thank you for wasting my time on that whole lot of nothing. They even try to tease Peter and Nebula being a couple at one point, which, honestly, would have been an interesting way for both of them to move on. If it was done right and felt natural, they could have pulled that off. But it's literally there as a joke for the trailer, and it's never brought up again. Oh, and could someone please explain this to me? When the hell did Quill and Rocket become best friends? No, really, he calls Rocket his best friend several times throughout the film, but when the hell did that happen? I mean, you're calling him a trash panda in the last movie. I mean, some explanation would be nice, I'm just saying. Drax and Mantis in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 brought out the absolute best in one another. These two were such a fun pair. The comedy between them was on point, and they even had some serious moments that made their scenes together special. In Guardians 3, not a single scene with them together made me laugh. And to be fair, humor is a subjective thing. If you found it funny, I'm glad you did. I personally did not, and I was very disappointed. That was another thing that let me down because both the first film and the second were just hilarious. I laughed my ass off throughout those films when I first saw them, and I still laugh hard at both of them today. The humor was on point, but for Guardians 3, all the humor for me just fell flat. There is literally a running gag with Cosmo being called a bad dog. Can someone out there explain to me how that is supposed to be funny? Like, anyone, I'm begging you, tell me how it's supposed to be funny, because it was fucking aggravating. Now, I will say, Gamora is a pretty cool character. The issue is, I do not care about this character because I know it's not Gamora, or at least not the Gamora that we grew to know and love. That Gamora is dead. This new one's inclusion feels pointless and feels like it's working against the story rather than with it. It's making Quill look like an incompetent jackass, it's distracting from the emotional core of the story, which is to save Rocket, and in the end, she doesn't even go with them. She just goes with the Ravagers, so what was even the point of putting us through all that? I mean, look, I understand wanting Gamora in here in some capacity, but this Gamora is not the one from the last two films, so I couldn't care less about her being in this film or not. I mean, obviously acknowledge there's still a version of her running around, maybe give her a few scenes, but you don't need her there throughout most of the damn film. She doesn't even have an emotional connection to Rocket or really any of these characters, so yeah, my point stands. The only argument I've heard for this is that it was meant to help Quill let go, but if anything, being around her is only gonna make things worse, and it does. And even if that was the intention, which it more than likely was, I'll give James Gunn the benefit of the doubt here, you literally could have just had her for a couple scenes, had her tell off Quill, and then have her leave to accomplish this. That rant she gives Quill pretty much clenches it for him, that his Gamora is gone. So why have her there after that? It feels so needless other than to give Zoe Saldana more screen time. Now, I will say, the effects in this film look damn good, but there was nothing about them that really wowed me, or surpassed the first two films. The action scenes are alright, but again, nothing too spectacular when you take the last two films into account. But here's the problem with the action in the film. The characters have insane plot armor. And I mean like, Fast and Furious plot armor. Rocket literally flatlines. He survives. Drax and Nebula get holes blown through their bodies. They walk it off 30 seconds later like a scratch. Peter Quill's body freezes in the cold of space to the point where his face is literally deforming, and he still fucking survives. Oh, and speaking of that scene, the fuck happened to your mask, dude? You know that thing you've been using to breathe in space for 2 movies now? Did you just conveniently lose that in a poker game, or what's the deal? And don't try to tell me, oh, well, that mask was destroyed in Guardians 2. Obviously, you didn't pay attention. The motherfucker had a new one in Infinity War. That argument is invalid. This film has Star Trek Into Darkness syndrome, where it gives you the illusion that it will kill someone off, but then doesn't have the balls to actually go through with it. This was the last Guardians movie, and none of them died? James, you literally killed off like 30 DC characters at the beginning of the Suicide Squad, but you couldn't manage to kill one here? And I'm sorry, these characters have so much plot armor, we don't fear they can actually die, and thus the action scenes have no urgency. There's no tension or any suspense because the main characters in the film are made to be invincible by the plot. So once I realized this, I pretty much stopped giving a crap altogether. If I don't fear for the characters' lives, I'm not going to be invested when they are put in quote-unquote danger. Lastly, the soundtrack is okay. Don't get me wrong, there's some awesome tracks on here that do work well with some scenes. Hell, my favorite Beastie Boys song is in this movie, and that moment was pretty damn cool. But there's some songs that simply feel out of place and just don't seem to work with the scenes they're in. Possibly the biggest one was the opening where they played Creep by Radiohead. Great song, but it felt a bit awkward where it was placed. The scene calls for a somber tone, but I don't think Creep necessarily works for it. But that's just my opinion. In the end, while I still hold the first two Guardians films in very high regard, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is towards the bottom of the totem pole for me. While there are certainly worse Marvel films, hell, there's worse MCU films, given how great the first two films were, Guardians 3 is probably the most disappointing entry in the MCU to date, at least for me. I honestly don't understand the praise for this one. But as I said earlier, if you enjoyed the humor, if you liked what they did with the characters, and it got more of an emotional response from you, don't let me ruin your good time. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad the movie has an audience. But I don't see me being a member of that audience anytime soon.
In a beautiful sky.